Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Before we get started, we're going to have Councilman Adams lead us in prayer, and I ask that we all please stand for the pledge. All right, again, I want to thank everyone for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started. Our first item on the agenda is to consider approval of minutes of the January 16, 2024 regular session. Council, if we had time to review the minutes, I'll open the floor for a motion.
After reviewing the minutes, I'll make a motion we approve the January 16th, 2024 regular session meeting that's been presented.
I'll second that.
A motion made by Councilman Dale, second by Councilman, excuse me, Councilman Chappelle. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Okay, the vote is unanimous. We'll move on now to item 2. Item 2 is our public comments. The City Council welcomes citizens' participation and comments at all council meetings. Citizens' comments are limited to 2 minutes out of respect for everyone's time. The council is not permitted to respond to your comments. The Texas Open Meetings Act requires that topics of discussion, deliberation be posted on an agenda not less than 72 hours in advance of the city council meetings. If your comments relate to a topic that is on the agenda, the council will discuss that topic on the agenda at the time that the topic is discussed and allowed. At this time, if we have anyone that would like to speak, please come up, address your names, and understand that you'll be at 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I apologize, I'm usually better prepared. I've left my notes at home. But I'd like to speak to some recent information that I received under the Freedom of Information Act, and in regards to the salary ranges, which I've spoken on before, I think are way out of sync. But one that caught my attention was the one that was for the fire chief's position, and that position received a $28,000 increase in 1 year. From 23 to 24, it went from $113,000 to $141,000 this year. I've heard comments about being frugal with taxpayer money, but I think you need to go back and review these salary ranges and do another salary survey, because I also got a copy of a salary survey done a few years ago, and I think you should probably take a good look at those and look at where we are and where we're going to be in the next few years if we keep giving these tens of thousands of dollars in increases for 1 year. Some over 2 or 3, but that one just stood out. The other issue I'd like to bring up is the mileage issue, and I've been really vocal about that, and I will say that Councilman Chappelle and Adams both paid back over $9,900 in their mileage reimbursement. As of my last claim, I have not found the others have repaid theirs back. Don't know if they have yet, but just not in the last request I've made. And also I'd like to say I've heard a lot of comments about a contract that was with, I believe it's probably with Tri-Water, that supposedly wasn't signed by council. I came up last week and I went through the council minutes because I'd heard it, just a rumor, and I haven't verified that except with a couple of people that told me. But I did go through the council meeting minutes, and in 2019, that contract was taken to council. The comments I'd heard is that council never voted on it, but it's in the council minutes, and Councilman Dale and Councilman Nance were the ones who had first and second, but it was approved, so if there's a question about that, I suggest you look at your council minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Corbell. Do we have anyone else before we move on to our next item? Okay. Item 3 on the agenda, because we have quite a few people that I'm sure will be speaking on this item, and for time consumption of the rest of the people that are concerned with the agenda, we'll be moving item 3 to the place of item 8, and at this time, we'll be having agenda 4 addressed on the agenda. So, item 4 is a presentation by Kent Basinger, representing Lions Club.
Mayor and council, let me just say that I talked with Kent a couple of weeks ago. They do have a Lions Club has a presentation for us, so I invited him to this council meeting to make that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Manager, and Council. As y'all are fully aware of, the Lions Clubs we serve our communities, and we love being involved in the community. And one thing we've been talking about for years is putting in a park, something that we can tag with our name, with our signature. And so recently we identified a piece of property. It's right in front of Chick-fil-A up there. It's a DOT right-of-way. And in researching this and talking with DOT, that piece of property is actually under some sort of maintenance permit with the city since 1967. So DOT told me that all we need is the city council to say, yes, you can put a park there, and it's a done deal. We spoke with Chick-fil-A. They're very excited about it. They want to be a part of it. And so, I think it's a win-win for the community that, the Lions, we're going to get to make a park. I foresee maybe a pavilion with a picnic table out there, some swing sets. Of course, we like to help out the special needs children in our community, so we will probably do some special needs equipment along with it. This piece of property, did you give them that picture I sent you on email of it? They know the area, okay. This is if you ever went to a chamber cookout where the barbecue pit sat, that whole area was paved. That's the area we're talking about. So it'll be from the curb of Chick-fil-A going west out to that planter box out there, and there's a couple of trees there, and then on the south side it's lined by those real tall oaks, and I believe there's still a little library box out there for a book trade. So that's the area we're looking at. It's not a large area, and hopefully y'all will see it our way and let's build a park there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Patient. Council, we have any questions or anything, discussion?
So at what point will we take action on that? Because it just says this is just a presentation, so.
Yes, and in fact, now's the time for the discussion, ask questions. You direct staff to bring it to you for a vote. We'll bring it next council meeting. Yeah, I recommend that's what we do. Kent and I visited concerning this, and all the Lions Club that's members that are here. We appreciate all that y'all do for our community, and I know this is going to be a win-win for Chick-fil-A and our citizens, and I think travelers as they come through to have a place to go out see what the Lions Club has done. I think it enhances our whole community with doing that, and I applaud y'all for bringing this to us, and I personally don't see any problem with it at all. I think it's a great idea, and we appreciate you doing this.
Thank you, Tim.
I just wanted to mention that that we have an agreement with the state of TxDOT that the city would maintain that area that's there right away since '67, was it? And so when the chamber built their building there, however many years ago, they for the privilege of building that building there, they said they'd take over. So they've maintained that with a contract and maintained that area. When Chick-fil-A bought that property, I told Greg Lascotti, the developer, that they would be responsible to maintain that. And so, but since it's been built, the managers called and said, who's going to maintain that? And I said, well, I think Chick-fil-A's going to. And he said, man, I don't want to do that. So, but with this park here, I think what we're also probably going to do is we'll maintain that as a park, and we'll just start maintaining that area. So it'll start looking good. The last year it hadn't looked that good, but it will as we do. Yeah, the Great Myrtles, all the way out to the curb of the highway.
Kent, do you have a name that y'all come up for that little park you're gonna call it?
Oh, I wasn't pushing it hard enough. Okay. I talk loud, yeah. So, you know, we'll put a 55-gallon trash can out there with a big lion head on it, some sort of signage, nice signage that says, you know, Mount Pleasant Lions Club on it. But unless the club comes up with a better name, right now I'm just going with Lions Park.
I will say this, I talked to Chuck the other day and he was thrilled, and, anyway, we've got some representatives from Chick-fil-A here tonight, and I believe he told me that you or your mom one had, already redone the reading nook, or was going to, okay. Okay, well, and once again, thank y'all. Y'all been an asset to the community, for stuff like that, that didn't get asked to do. Nobody asked you, and y'all did it anyway, so that means a lot. It means a lot to all of us, and thank y'all. Between you guys and the Lions Club, I don't know how we can miss on this deal.
All right, again, I'm certainly in full support of it. I think it was a great idea that you guys came up with, and I'm looking forward to seeing it finished.
You don't mind if I call you Coach Craig, do you?
Go right ahead.
We'll bring the resolution next council meeting.
All right, we'll go ahead and close that item on the agenda. We'll now move on to item 5. Item 5 is consider resolution 2024-3, approval of Titus County Appraisal District renovation of district facilities at 2404 West Ferguson Road, Mount Pleasant, Texas. Ms. Shirley. Yeah, you'll have to hold that button.
Okay. Do y'all have the slides? Okay. So I am here tonight. I'm Shirley Dickerson, Chief Appraiser of Titus County Appraisal District, and I am here tonight to ask y'all to approve our resolution to add office space to our building. We have seen an influx of growth in the county, and I came to y'all last year with the survey we had done of CADs our size and how many people they operate with. They average about 15 employees. We have 9, including myself. And then after that happened, we had a whole lot of our deadlines cut more than in half. So our struggle just got a little bit harder to get all those deadlines met that we have to get met. So we do have to add all those employees. But we ran into the situation where we don't have a place to put the employees. All of our offices are full. We have a couple of employees that are sharing offices at the current time. And when you're visiting with property owners about their property, you want them to have privacy and feel comfortable. So when you're sharing offices with other appraisers, it's hard for them to feel that way. So we have came up with a plan that we would like for y'all to approve. And if you'll go ahead and go to the next slide. This is just an aerial photo of the building that we currently have. We have this large warehouse in the back that is just open space where we throw our desks and broken chairs, storage, all that kind of stuff. So it's wide open. There's a whole lot of space out there that's not used. We purchased this building in 2007, and part of the reason they purchased it is because of the area in the back, that if we ever had to expand, we would have the space to do it. So we're kind of just moving forward with a plan that was put into place years and years ago. So if you'll go ahead and go to the next one. This is what we're wanting to do. So it says option 1 because the property tax code says that I have to give y'all 3 different options. So this is the one that we're considering. On the left this would be where our current boardroom is right now. We would like to turn it into 4 office spaces. And then on the right is where the majority of the renovation would come. That is that open warehouse. We would like to put in 3 offices out there along with a double-sized boardroom. That would serve a few purposes for future expansion if we ever needed it. We would be able to pull a soundproof curtain in the middle of that, operate 2 ARB panels at one time if we needed to. Our protests went from about 1,800 average protests a year to around 3,200 last year, and our deadline to get that roll certified didn't increase. So we do still have to have all of those hearings in a very small time span. So there will be a time that we will have to operate 2 panels. So having that large of a boardroom would give us the opportunity to do that. It would also give us the opportunity to host our state certification classes in Mount Pleasant, where we wouldn't have to pay to send the employees to Austin to get all of that done. So it would be a savings on our mileage and per diem and just the class and hotel in general, if we were able to host some of those classes here. So that's one of our plans as well. The other plan is to be able to host town hall meetings for the public when they have questions, or law changes. Like this year, we had so many questions about the new homestead exemption. It would have been nice to have the space to just say, hey, we're going to have a meeting at 6 o'clock on Wednesday. Everybody come and we'll answer your questions. So it's going to serve multiple purposes. It will also have a waiting room back there for the people that are waiting for their hearings. This will keep that lobby from getting congested when we have ARB going on, where people can come in and pay their taxes without having to weave through the crowd. So our estimation of how much this is going to cost is $375,000 to $400,000, not to exceed $400,000. So that's what we're asking for. This would be something that would have to be financed since we are a zero balance budget. When we bring money back to y'all, that is why we bring it back to y'all, because we're not allowed to keep any money. Therefore, we would have to get a loan for this. Option number 2, if you'll go ahead and go, we had to just go out on the market to find our option number 2 and number 3. So our other option would be to purchase a building that's already existing and that has enough square footage and parking for us. We did find this one on the market. It's a doctor's office, so it would have space for offices, but it would have to have a little bit of renovation made just for the boardroom. And as you can tell, it's listed for 1.7, so that's a whole lot more than what we were asking for to use what we already have. And then if you'll go on to the next slide, our other option would be to purchase land and to build a building. So this is a tract of land that's on Ferguson, just right down the road from us, so it's a great location if we were to move. But it's listed for $449, and then we would still have to put a building on it. So if you'll go to the next slide, this is the cost approach to what a building the size we would need would cost. Just your basic building, kind of similar to what we have right now. It's coming in at an estimate of $989,300. So if you add that back to the land, we're back at $1.4 million. So we really do feel like option number 1 is the most cost-effective way to get what we need and be able to service the public the way that we need to. So I'm open for questions if y'all have any.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I had the opportunity, you reached out to the council for us to come individually and take a tour of the facility, and you show us firsthand. And I did that last week, I believe it was. And we talked, and you might also tell the public how this process works. You're asking for the city to participate in this, but what other entities? This is just we're a small part of this process. It's not that the city is giving you the ability to go out and do this. So you might kind of explain how that goes with the ISDs and other taxing entities.
So currently, the city pays 12.57% of our budget. And the way that works is that each entity's tax levy is all added up, and then whatever percentage of that tax levy is yours, that's a percentage of the budget that you pay into the appraisal district. So last year, or currently this year for 2023 or 2024, y'all are paying 12.57. My estimate is that y'all would pay around 14.27% next year, and that's simply because the levies for the school districts was cut drastically this year with the new homestead exemption laws. So that's going to increase y'all's contribution a little bit more. So that's the way that's all broken out. Every entity has to put into our budget if they want to levy a tax, because if you want to levy a tax, you must use the appraisal district. You can't get any other appraisal district. So we have 12 entities that pays into our appraisal district. Y'all are one of them. And y'all pay you're number 3. So you're our 3rd largest contributor into our budget, with Mount Pleasant ISD being the highest. So.
Okay, thank you. Council, we have any further questions?
So who ultimately picks Plan 1, 2, and 3?
Since we're actually requesting plan number 1, that's what we're asking for y'all, is to approve that plan number 1. The tax code just says I have to give y'all 3 options. So if all the entities wanted us to go with a different option, that's what we would have to do. But we're just requesting the $400,000 option and use what we already have.
Have you presented this to any of the other entities, or this the first one?
I've had informal meetings with all the other entities, but y'all are my first formal meeting. Oh, I take it. Other than the hospital, I did meet with them and they did pass the resolution. They are not a voting entity. So we didn't have to get their opinion, but they are a large contributor into our budget. So we did go ahead and meet with them. So they did approve it, but they're actually not a voting member, so.
All right, do we have any further questions? All right, we're gonna go ahead and open the floor on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-3 on option number 1.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Chappelle. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda and move on to item 6. Item 6 is to consider award of bid number 1, 23-24 for the grounds maintenance.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Thatcher. I'm presenting the ground maintenance bids for 23-24. It's a 3-year bid, and I have the recommendation to go with the low bids on each section, and I can present those numbers right now. Group 1's number is $475 per mowing. Group 2 is $1,650. Group 3 is $2,300. Group 4 is $1,740. Group 5 is $20,340. And that's an estimation. It's not an exact payout on that last one. That is our recommendation from the staff.
Garrett, you might go a little further with the audience and let them know that what group 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where they make sure and understand what the process is of that. The group 1 is a smaller area that we bid out separately. And
Yes, sir. Group 1 is all the city buildings. Group 2 would be the cemeteries. Group 3 would be wastewater plant, big buildings like that. Group 4 is state right-of-ways, stuff that TxDOT doesn't mow, various different city lots. Yes, sir. And group 5 is your code enforcement, mowings and such.
Mayor and Council, if I could just say too, this contract we've had is 3-year contract. So we see a pretty good increase every 3 years because they're tied to this contract for 3 years. So this is a pretty big increase.
Do we know what that increase is percentage-wise from the previous 3 years to this new one?
It's $55,000 over the whole entire year. So per year, that would be your increase compared to the last.
And I recognize a lot of the names of the companies here. I believe most of all those have done business with us and had contracts with us previously. Is that correct?
All right, council, we have any further questions? Floor is open for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we consider the awarding of this bid number 1-2324 for ground maintenance has been presented. And I'll just add again that this was a bid process, that everyone had the opportunity to bid on this, and thankfully these are local contractors.
I'll second the motion.
Mayor and Council, probably, but I'd like to add on to that, Tim, that it seems like a lot, but it would be more expensive for us to hire people and have the equipment staff to do this, and like we did, we just added another property tonight to the list that wasn't in the bid, so we have to add that on the right away up there. And I know that here in the city, with TxDOT right away down by Walgreens and the medians and this highway, you see people out there fixing that, taking care of that. We all want that because it looks better than just letting it go, because TxDOT's not going to come in town and mow every week. I mean, they might make it once a year, so it makes things look better. And like you say, these are local businesses, and like you say, we tie them down for 3 years with the bid, and so at the end of that time, they're ready for. We know we're going to get a little increase. They've been doing a good job, and so we think this is the best way to handle this, the mowing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thatcher. Okay, we had a motion made by Councilman Dale, second by Councilman Adams. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to item 7. Item 7 is to consider final pay request number 3 from Francis Excavating LLC for the work on County Road 2200 rehab.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Mr. Thatcher. This is the pay request number 3 and final from Francis Excavating on the County Road 2200 project. This includes approximately right at $4,900 worth of actual improvements, and the rest of it is the release of retainage. In previous council meetings on previous payments, we had indicated to y'all that we did additional testing, additional testing on this road in regards to concrete strength. Everything came back fine. Everything was above PSI requirements, and there was no issues. So we were at that time willing to allow the contractor to submit for final payment and release of retainage. This amount was for $35,768.32. This also, and we've included for your information, this includes a deduct change order of $38,690. That consists of 2 items. One is on the far side of the road. There is on the far end of the road where we were transitioning from concrete into asphalt. There is another project the city's going for, working with EDC, that will extend the road. So that transition to asphalt was no longer necessary and was removed from the contract and was credited back to the city. The second item is in regards to a miscellaneous task item, was included in the contract initially under bid, and the remnants of that $38,000 was what was removed. The contractor did not utilize on the roadway improvements. So in billings to date, it brings, so we're under budget, right at $617,991.47. So it came in right at 94% of what the overall budget was. City has received the executed certificate of substantial completion from the contractor. Everything on our end was reviewed and deemed to be accurate. Final walkthrough was performed on January 2nd, and punch list items were confirmed by KSA staff, KSA and city staff to be complete on January 8th. January 8th is your substantial completion date, and where, if accepted, the warranty period for the roadway starts. City has received the contract work acceptance letter from KSA, and we are in agreement that the work is in accordance with city standards and contract requirements. We have reviewed the quantities and prices and we recommend acceptance accordingly.
Mayor and council, I'd like to just point out, just remind you, I think you probably remember this, but this is a grant application that actually Nathan from the EDC, and he's here, but he's just out that door. If you'll stick your head in, Nathan, and we can see that you're here. There he is. He actually wrote this grant and worked with the state agency that we got the grant for. We had a matching amount of $120,000. Nathan went to the county and got $30,000 from them, and we gave him $30,000. EDC gave him $30,000, and then they got $30,000 from Diamond Sea Trailers, which is really it's in there where they're expanded their area. So it is a grant. We're looking at another one to extend it on down as they expand their business. But we just want you to know that our amount of money we put in was $30,000, and really Nathan should be applauded for getting this grant and handling it. They've been handling it and doing a great job. So thank you, Nathan. I'll just add also for the public here, we all know where the road is, but this is a street there that's Diamond Sea Manufacturing, the County Road 2200, just FYI to you. And this does have a year warranty that starts here, I believe, January the 8th. And we work closely with Lanny Buck and KSA on this project, and we appreciate that, Mr. Buck. He's over in the corner.
All righty. Council, we have any further questions or comment? Okay, we'll open the floor for a motion on this item.
I make a motion that we approve final pay request number 3 from Francis Excavating LLC for work on County Road 2200 rehab.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Councilman Chappelle, second by Councilwoman Spruill. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 The vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. We sure thank you, Jay. You got, I was gonna say, sit tight. A stand. All right, we'll go ahead and close that item and move on to item 8, which is consider pay request number 9 from Heritage Contractors, INC, for work on the south side wastewater improvements. Jay.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Council and Mr. Thatcher. This is pay request number 9 from Heritage General Contractors in the amount of $1,127,406.98. And since he just walked up here, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce him. This is Brad Osborne. He is with Heritage Contractors and is available for questions that you may have. Billings to date is right around 36% of total, and right around just under 15 million. The original contract is right at a little 40.5 million. Remaining is right around 64% of total, right around just under 26 million left in the contract. Original contract time 750 days, 750 calendar days, and they have utilized 34% to date. We have reviewed the submitted quantities and prices and found them to be accurate, and recommend acceptance and we'll go ahead and so on this yeah, there we go. Just jumping the gun there. We wanted to show with you some of the aerial pictures that Brad has provided us of the project site as it's over the last month. What you're looking at here is clarifiers number 3 and 4 closest to you, the cylindrical structures that you're seeing, with the concrete structure on the right, the center column of clarifier number 4. Behind it is the aeration structures, which they are still drilling piers. That has been the majority of these pay estimates to date, and is majority of this one as well. Brad, how many piers do we have left? There are 63 piers left to be drilled at this stage, so we still got a little ways to go. How many left? So be completed with the piers February 22nd. 388 piers, and we got 63 left to go. I don't see that. That is another picture that shows the influent lift station, the other direction into the plant. They're making some good progress on the influent lift station. That will be utilizing screw pumps. It's basically a copy of what you see on the right-hand side of the existing treatment line. That's the influent lift station and pouring support wall and the forms that was earlier on this month. Brad, were y'all able to pour that? Middle of next week is when that's planned. So they just have forms at this stage. Rain has been delaying a number of the concrete pours at the. That's the influent lift station. As you can see, it's starting to take shape, and where the screw pumps are going to go back in. But it's looking pretty good at this stage. That's a picture of the center column, clarifiers number 3 and 4, where they're installing rebar, and then getting ready to pour at a later date. And then there's another overview of the clarifiers 3 and 4 structures that was taken about a week ago. And then there is the aeration basin. So the majority of this placement is materials on hand, work on the piers, and then some work on the clarifiers 3 and 4 and the influent lift station. We've reviewed the quantities and prices and found them to be correct and recommend acceptance accordingly.
Mayor and council, I'd just like to say, this is a big, as you know, this is a large project, one of the largest we've probably done in the city for a long time at one time. It actually rehabs the old plant and adds additional capacity. The original capacity was at 2.9 million gallons a day. But when we talked to TCEQ back in 2019, 2020, they said we'd already reached over 90% capacity. They have a rule that if you're at 75% capacity, you should start planning on a new plant or increasing it. And when you've hit 90%, you should be under construction. But we learned from them that we were at 90% there. So therefore they said, your capacity, your permit's not a 2.9 million gallon, it's down to 2.1 million gallons. And you need to start right away in building more or whatever. So that we did that. You all did that. And that's what this is. So it's expanding from 2.1. We'll have 5 million gallons a day plant right when we finished. It'll be able to do that. So it'll take on, we'll be putting in around 2 to 2.5. And we'll have the capability now to sewer the north part of Mount Pleasant down the west side. We're going to offload the current system. That's the other thing we found is that the city system was overloaded. As we built out, we just added more lines, so everything comes to the middle of the city and then down. So by building this line on the west side of town, we're able to offload the system so that it's not under so much pressure and capacity, and we offload it. And it also allows more growth to the system. So this is really important to the city. It's put us back in the favorable eyes of the TCEQ that were not happy with us before, and it allows us to add the additional developments in housing. As you know, Steve Capps finished the sewer line up north there?
That line's still in progress.
It's close to finished. And he also built we built a water line up there, and he participated about $200,000 in that process. But it opens up an area. He's doing 140 houses up there on the north side, but it opens up an area that will allow 1,400 additional lots as developed, because the sewer's there in the water. If you don't have sewer and water, you just can't grow. And so, so this project is very important to us for our growth and for sustaining what we have now. So I just wanted to point out that it's, and by the way, when you have we're used to projects coming in and getting a $35,000 payment, and it was interesting, that first one was 1.1 million or 900, and they've been about $1 million every time they come in for a payment, but it's just that size of a thing, and it's very important. It'll be a 30-year the 40-year, thing for the city. I just want to point that out.
All right, thank you, Ed. Council, we have any further questions? All right, floor is open for a motion on this item.
I'll move pay request number 9 for Heritage Contractors.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilman Adams, second by Councilman Chappelle. Madam Secretary, record a vote, please.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous. We'll now close that item on the agenda. At this time, we'll be reverting back to item 3 on the agenda, which is the presentation by John Anderson and team on the Anderson development.
Mayor and council, y'all know John Anderson and his team is here tonight. And we've been working off and on for 4 years on this project. And we have we send out to you a development agreement with all the attachments and addendums kind of thing to it. John is making the presentation of it tonight. We have an opportunity to ask questions and so forth. If you want him to come back for more questions, we can do that too. But the plan is to, if we think we're ready to go, we'll have it on the agenda next time for consideration of the development agreement and whether to do a PID.
All right, Mr. Anderson.
Council, Mayor, Mr. Thatcher, thanks for having me. Thanks for everybody for coming. I appreciate the support of the community for growth and success, and I know that some of the people here may not exactly agree with what the best path to that is, but at the same time, they're passionate about Mount Pleasant. That's why people are here. So I love people that have passion. I love people that want to see growth, want to see success, and want to do good things and want to put their energy into positively making a change. So I've got we can do one and two things. I've got a real short, just hit some high notes. I can hit some concerns of people in the community, or if y'all have looked at that development agreement and you want to go straight to asking questions about that, we can do that too. I know on the agenda, the development agreement is what's on there, so if y'all would like to discuss that, I want to follow the process.
Why don't you give us an overview of the project and let them ask questions?
All right, so I've lived basically my whole life here. My parents were from DeKalb, Texas, and my dad, after serving in the Army, went to pharmacy school, and when we came back, there's only one pharmacy in DeKalb, so when I was 6 years old, he moved to Mount Pleasant, and I've been here ever since. I left for a little while to go to Texas A&M University and came back home, and since I got back home, I've been a local business owner since 1998. We've employed lots of different people in the community. We've supported the community. We've, through those endeavors, put food on people's tables and served our community and our friends. In 2013, I started doing full-time land development. Shortly after that, being from Mount Pleasant, you want to do something where you're from. You want to make an impact. And so you want to have a purpose. And so in 2013 is really when we started looking for land, thinking about this development. In 2015, we put the tract of land that is now Atwoods, that stretches from Atwoods back over to La Quinta and back towards the lake. We put that under contract. In 2016, we closed on it. And since that time, we've invested of our time, we've invested of our energy, we've invested of our finances. We've put a lot into pre-development, and we believe that this can impact the community. We believe, being in Mount Pleasant all my life, I would say that if you talk to 90% of the people in town, they'll say that Mount Pleasant needs three things: grocery on the north end of town, a steakhouse, and something to do, some entertainment. I believe that this development can bring all those things. And so I believe we can meet the needs of the community. And so that leads us to where we are today. So actually, let's go to, keep going, right there. And so, and then we'll go back to the second slide. And so this is, in general terms, I think most of the people know in general terms what we're doing, but I don't know if everyone has seen this or not. It's certainly on the internet. And so on the right side of the screen, that's in basic terms what was approved as far as our zoning goes in May or June of last year. So this is the plan of development that has been approved by the city. And what we're doing tonight is basically discussing the agreement between ourselves, the developer, and the city as far as moving forward to see this come to fruition. What I will say is that the Christus Hospital announced 2 weeks ago that publicly that if you look at that slide, is there anybody who needs me to walk over there and explain what they're looking at as far as where we're at? Can y'all see two Senoritas and Toyota? Can y'all tell where that's at? So beside Toyota, those lots 9 through 14 and 18, Christus Hospital will be purchasing those tracts in the very near future, and they have announced that they will start building a medical facility there. They will phase their progress, but they'll have 13 acres there to bring more medical choices to Mount Pleasant, to the city, and to the people that live here, to the community. And so that whole little chunk there will come a medical facility. They have announced that they'll be open next year, and so they'll start building quickly, and they'll have a facility here in Mount Pleasant for everyone to enjoy. There beside that, those 15, 16, 17, and lots 2 through 7 will be commercial pad sites. Those will be offices, restaurants, things of that nature. And who threw that at me? Oh, I got you. All right, now we're in business. I'm not very techy. And so usually I got somebody younger than me standing beside me that's pretty good with tech. And so so this area here, this is along I-30, and we'll have some restaurants there. Certainly with the hospital coming in this section, there'll be, we're already talking to some restaurants for these pad sites here, and also for different businesses over here. And then this section number 8 here, what that'll be additional retail. And then this section 23, that'll be single family housing. These square boxes here will be townhomes. This will be a marina area, which will have some restaurants here where you can watch the sunset and eat dinner. And then there will be a small marina here where you could actually pull up in a boat, and then you could go in there and eat, and then you could get back in your boat. And this area here, this will be designed for multifamily, and this 19 is flex space, and it could be either multifamily or it could be commercial. This is the existing park where the boat ramp is. What we'll be doing, we'll be putting in a walking trail. We'll be working with the city to upgrade that park, which will be part of the agreement that we have with them. We'll be contributing to that. There'll be a walking trail. It goes around the lakefront here. And what we plan to do is preserve this lakefront. We'll clean up some of the underbrush, keep the large trees, and we'll give people a state park feel. And so they'll be able to walk and enjoy this area. They'll be able to enjoy the marina, the restaurants, and they'll be able to enjoy the renovated city park. And so I think Mount Pleasant needs a place for people to hang out. So Glenn Calvert, I think a lot of people here probably know who Glenn is. He's done some work with the city, but he's a structural engineer for Prefert Engineering, or Prefert Manufacturing. And so Glenn and I were having a discussion right at the beginning of this. And so Glenn said, I think this is really needed in Mount Pleasant. He said, it was Friday night here a few weeks ago, and he said, my wife and I were talking. And she said, hey, what do you want to do? And we talked about it, well, what is there to do? And so he said, where we wound up at Walmart, and we just walked circles around Walmart. And so I think this will be a great place for people to hang out, to enjoy time with their families. It'll be a relaxed atmosphere where people can come and have a good time. And so this is the aerial. Just kidding. And but you can see where the hospital area would be right there beside Toyota. Toyota's that white building with the white looking parking lot, and to the left of that, you can see where those pad sites will be. That'll be the location of the hospital. So let's go back to slide number 2. So what I'd like to do is I would like to discuss a couple things that are in the development, or go ahead to the next one. A couple things that are in the development agreement that we'll be discussing. One of those is PID bonds. And so PID bonds is a financing tool. That's what it is. And so first thing, so Public Improvement District is what PID stands for. And so PID bonds are issued only for public improvements, which would be horizontal infrastructure, which would be considered roads or utilities. And so bonds aren't being issued for anything that won't be turned over to the city for to be owned by the public, by the city. And only a portion of those, so on that number 2 bullet point, PID bonds reimburse the developer for a portion of public streets and utilities that are owned by the city. Once they're constructed, they're turned over to the city. And so, so the number 3, I'll go ahead and read this, and then I'll kind of explain some of that. So PID assessments only apply to the land in the development and have no cost to the citizens of Mount Pleasant or Titus County. The only people that have any cost involved in paying back a PID bond is the property owner. And so how PID bonds work, is there an engineer goes out and says, basically, this is what it's going to cost to build those roads and infrastructure. And then a financial consultant and a whole team get involved, and they say, okay, based on that infrastructure, what we're going to do is we're going to break down the cost of those parcels, and we're going to estimate what the value of those things will be when they're built out. And so then we self-impose a tax on ourselves as the landowner. And so how that works is basically part of the cost of that roadway is reimbursed to the developer, and that cost is passed on to the person that buys that parcel. And so all it really boils down to, it's real simple. All it boils down to is it's a finance mechanism. And so how it works is, as a developer, when I go in and build streets and utilities and all these things, and then we divide all these lots up, I'm going to say, okay, in this lot, I have this much money between the land and the roads and everything that's been spent to develop that lot. Whatever that number is, I have that much money. And so as a developer, the only way I can be profitable is to charge a little bit over that and sell that to an end user. And so how it works is the terms are better on a PID bond than they are for me to go out and finance the money. And so the cost doesn't change. And so the cost of building that road is the cost of building that road. So one way or another, whoever owns that lot is going to absorb the cost of building that lot whenever they purchase it. And so what a PID bond does is it breaks that up, the cost of it. And so part of that is directly to me, and part of that is absorbed through the PID bond. And the only reason it's done that way is to get that landowner better terms on their purchase, because they're able to finance it at a lower rate, they're able to finance it at a longer term, and so it's less expensive for them to finance it through the PID bond. And I'll give you just a quick example. And so these aren't real numbers, this is just an example. And so if I go out and build those roads, and in that single family lot, I end up with $50,000 in that lot. And then I may sell that lot for whatever the number is, $55,000. And that pays the profit, the carry cost, and all the things that were associated with that. Whereas if I do PID bonds, I'm gonna have $40,000 in that lot, so I can sell it for $45,000, and then the PID bond may be for the other $10,000 a lot. It winds up costing the same amount of money. It's not extra money on top of it. It's how you finance the construction of those lots. And so in the end, if you're, by doing PID bonds, you're saving money to the end purchaser, because they're getting better terms on that $10,000 that's financed through the PID process than they are through the bank, because municipal bonds get a good interest rate. Municipal bonds get good terms. And that's how it works. It's not costing anybody anything extra. That's how PID bonds work. And so the misconception is that somebody goes out and they pay $55,000 for that lot, and then they pay for the PID bond on top of it. But it's not. The process allows them to finance part of the purchase of that lot in bonds that are only payable to the people that own those lots. That's how it works. And so there's a misconception that it's this extra thing that's added on top, but it's not. It's just part of it. It's the same thing as financing a percentage of that lot at the bank and a percentage of that lot through a bond. That's the breakdown. And so with PID bonds, there's no extra cost. Now I'm going to go to another slide, and I'm going to explain something else. All right. So for everybody that's out there thinking, yeah, but you still got this cost every year that's figured in how PID bonds are paid back by the property owner. They're paid back through the appraisal district as an assessment on their tax bill. And so somebody says, all right, yeah, but there's this assessment. And so if you look at these three scenarios, and again, these are just examples of different options. So everything's important. Everybody has a different priority. You know, what I love, what somebody else loves, what I'm passionate about, all those things. God made us all different. We're all individuals. Everybody wants something different. And so if you look at the total payment, which would include the house, the land, the taxes, and everything, for the purposes of this example, if you look at home number one, for that guy, he wants more land. That's his priority. And so if he has $2,000 a month, he's going to find a house that has more land, so he may be able to purchase 5 acres with a smaller house. But his priority is getting more land. That's what he wants. That's what's important to him. Example number 2, somebody may go out and buy an existing home, may need a little bit of renovation, may need a new coat of paint, may need something, but they may have 4 or 5 kids. They may need a large home. So their priority is a larger home, but they know they have $2,000 a month. So what they're going to look at is, what is their monthly outgoing? What's their taxes? What's their house payment? What's everything rolled up together? And then there's another person that may want more amenities. They may want to look at the lake every day when they get up. They may want to walk to the medical. They may have health issues. They may want to be able to walk to a medical provider. you know, they may want to be able to go fishing. You know, there's a lot of amenities out there in the new development. So they may say, okay, well, we'll take an 1,800 square foot home because we don't need it. You know, it's me and my wife. We don't need an 1,800 square foot home. But for them, and so that's the other example of people thinking that it's on top of that. It's really, people look at the combined payment of what they're going to spend, and they know what their liquid cash flow is every month, and they're going to buy a house based on that. That's how it really works in reality. All right, so those are the things about PID bonds, I'd say. All right, so this was designed to make you hungry. This is going to shorten the meeting, this slide, I knew. And so, all right, so I want to address another fear. And so there's a fear of new business kills old business. And that's simply not true. And so to show this example, I give you two pies. All right, so the left pie is the existing pie. That's how much money is being spent in our local economy today. And so the idea that a new business comes in, that idea means, and to the person that thinks that it's going to close down old business, they think that everybody's going to split up that small pie. But that's not how it works. When you bring development and jobs, what happens is the economy grows and you have a larger pie. And then by bringing new things to the community, what happens is you attract people from further away. And so if you've got new restaurants, what happens? Well, that guy in Talco's not going to drive to Paris. He's going to drive to Mount Pleasant. And that person in Sulphur Springs is going to drive to Mount Pleasant because we have something that they don't. And so what happens is the pie continues to increase. So if you don't bring new things in, what happens is you become a smaller pie because people will go to wherever things are happening, wherever there's growth, wherever there's new jobs, wherever there's new restaurants, wherever things are growing, people are going to be attracted to that area, and more people are going to come in, and more people are going to grow the local economy. So the pie is bigger. That's how it works. But if you don't grow, you lose people, other people go other places, and you diminish. So you're not going to stay the same. The idea is, are you going to become a bigger pie? Or are you going to become a smaller pie? And so the project that we're working on has a lot to do with job growth. And so we spent a lot of money figuring out how many jobs come to this area because of this development. And so the number's 2,220 jobs was the appraisal. And so the job appraisal. And so they're estimating we'll get 2,220 new full-time jobs from this development. And that's through construction, that's through stabilization of new business. And so with that, all these people that are working here now, you know, this is the estimate of the finished out build on the project is, just making sure you were here, Shirley, $83 or $87 million. And so there's a lot of building going on there. There's a lot of construction. There's a lot of money being spent. And what happens? It builds a bigger pie. And so all the local people, that's how they prosper, is you build a bigger pie. And that's why we're here today. You know, I know everybody knows this, but you know, Mount Pleasant had the first Walmart. They had the first Super Walmart. But Galen will tell you firsthand, I don't know if there's any areas, any towns the size of Mount Pleasant that have a Lowe's, a Home Depot, a True Value, and a McCoy's. And then you start adding Atwoods and Tractor Supply. I mean, this place is amazing. And so it's showing right there that it can support what's here, the new stuff. It can do all that. You know, we have a huge draw in this area. And so believe in growth. Let's see, what's our next slide? So, Galen, speaking to regional trade area, and so the number of people that shop in Mount Pleasant. So, and Nathan can talk to this too, but the number of people that shop in Mount Pleasant, everybody will say is between 80 and 100,000 people. We got a town of 16,000 people, and we got 5 times that many people shopping here. And so, so there's room for growth. But at the same time, whenever they did that report, what they did is they looked at the amount of money being spent in this area, the amount of money that is spent in this area, and the amount of money that leaves this area. And so the leakage is the amount of money that leaves this area. And in this area, there's over $1 billion with a B, $1 billion a year to be spent in this area that is spent somewhere else because we don't have options for people to shop. It's staggering, the amount of sales, the amount of sales tax, all these things that Mount Pleasant is losing because we don't have growth. In 1984, I believe they built the Brookshire Shopping Center. I think that's the last shopping center that was built in Mount Pleasant. And so if I do the quick math in my head, that's 40 years ago, the last shopping center was built in Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is in retail drought, and I don't think anybody can dispute that. The whole time I've lived here, my whole life, the thought is all right, we need to go shopping. When do you want to go to Longview? And it shouldn't be like that. People shouldn't have to drive 45 minutes to buy something that they need that might only cost $30 or $40. You know, you spend more in gas driving over there than you could just buy it for. And I know Amazon and a lot of those online retailers have helped that. But at the same time, sometimes you need something today. And, you know, I think to serve our community and to make it a better community, I think we need to have these choices. And I think, you know, I don't know exactly, I can't tell you exactly the businesses that'll be in this development, but I can tell you that it'll start it. And so there'll be some good businesses in here. There'll be some good restaurants. There'll be a good draw from this. This will be an area that people want to come to, people want to live at. And so I believe that it's the catalyst for great things to come. All right, and so I spoke a little bit earlier about that quality of life, and so most people want in town. Tim, you might need to open another steak restaurant, really. And so what do people want in Mount Pleasant? And so really it boils down to those 3 things. They want shopping, they want something to do, and they want a good steak. And so let's go ahead and go to the next one. And so this is a page out of the comprehensive growth plan that the city leaders have set out for us. And so this is the summary page. And so these are the things. So I'm just going to quickly go through these things. And all right, so number 1 on their list is include businesses that serve and provide high quality jobs to Mount Pleasant, residents that grow the tax base, and establish Mount Pleasant as an important long-term employment center for the Northeast Texas region. I don't know how many employers are here tonight, but I know that that employers will tell you that they struggle to hire people, new people from out of the area, because those people don't have anywhere to live. And so I believe everybody here understands that there's a need for housing in Mount Pleasant. And for Mount Pleasant to ever grow, we have to have more housing. This project will bring more housing, which will allow more employment. It'll grow the tax base. And, you know, just the hospital, it'll show you that this project's bringing high quality jobs to Mount Pleasant. So the next one is resilient and adaptable in response to change and innovation. And so I'll say that this development is, I don't know that you could find it in Longview the same as what we're doing here. I don't know that you could find this amenity. I think, I don't know how far away you'd have to go, but this is a development that is unique for so many different reasons, that yes, I believe, it meets that. And so supports diversity in all forms through the construction of diverse and unique developments, which this is that unique development, diverse housing types. This allows for 3 different housing types. And through the implementation of city policies that promote and celebrate an array of ethnic and cultural backgrounds. Definitely I believe that there will be all kinds of people living in this development that'll enjoy it. It'll be good for the city, and it'll be good for everyone. And so furthers Mount Pleasant as an education and training hub for people in the Northeast Texas region. I'll say at the hospital, I'm sure they'll be training medical people in the medical field at the new hospital. Provides new neighborhoods that give Mount Pleasant residents a wider range of attainable housing choices. We'll be doing that. Occurs where and when it can be supported by the public facilities and services provided by the city and by public entity partners. We're doing that. Maintains a healthy balance between old and new and between residential and non-residential uses. We have residential, commercial, medical, all those things. We have parks, all those things combined. Offers a diverse, vibrant, and family-friendly shopping, dining, and entertainment destination. This is exactly that. Enhances and upgrades Mount Pleasant's existing system of parks and recreational facilities for residents of all ages. That's what we're doing. We're upgrading the park. We're putting in trails. Incorporates natural assets, lakes, trees, topography, and the open space system to accentuate these key Northeast Texas assets. Obviously, we're doing that. And is efficient and effective in its investments in infrastructure, streets, utilities, parks, and trails. There will be over $30 million worth of roads and utilities in this development. And that'll all be donated back to the city. Enhances those assets that contribute to the city's small town feel. And so the trails, what we plan to do is we plan to keep all the hardwoods, the big trees, clean the underbrush, and we'll have a state park feel on that walking trail. Enhances those assets that contribute to the city's small town feel. Architectural, cultural assets. Debbie's here. We're actually naming a street after her and her family, and that land was previously owned by them, and so we're doing that to honor them. And so it's focused on strengthening targeted investment areas along I-30 in downtown Mount Pleasant. So certainly we're on I-30. So this meets all the goals. And so with that in mind, this sums up my presentation, but we're there, we set out really 10 years ago to do this, and I believe there's four keys to success. First one is you have to have a vision. And our vision was to enhance the lives of the people that live in Mount Pleasant. And then you have to believe you can do it. And so I would say we believe we could do it because we started writing checks. And so we believed we could do it. And then you have to start walking it out. And that's what we did. And the fourth step to success is you have to be determined. And so 10 years later, here we are standing in front of you saying, hey, we're doing it. And so what we're looking for is your support. We believe we have a great plan. We believe it's good for the citizens of Mount Pleasant. And we hope you feel the same.
All right, we certainly thank you for that presentation, and I can definitely concur with all your evaluations, I guess you say. I have a 10th anniversary coming up this weekend, and we're making plans to go to Texarkana to eat. So all those different things you said about what we need here is definitely true. There's a lot of things that's needed here, and well, I think we're an excellent place for growth. So I certainly appreciate the presentation.
John, could you maybe speak a little bit about the assessment and who pays it, or who's going to pay it, or all the inhabitants going to pay, and how much?
And so the assessment that's being referred to is the PID assessment. And so PID bonds, how PID bonds are paid back. And so so there's a lot of rules that are set up by the state of how these bonds are used, what they can be used for, what percentage of bonds can be used for which part of the project. And so we have a team that works together with us to be able to, that's what they do every day. So they're experts in that field, and they figure that out, and they say this is the number that works, and this is how you can, this is the path. And so, but in general terms, once that amount is figured, the properties are divided up, and there's an estimation. Maybe simpler just to let Roy describe this. But short version is there's an, do what?
How you doing, Roy?
You could talk about what the assessment is going to be, how much, and who's going to pay it. Is it going to be residential, retail, everybody going to pay it, or pay the same, or what?
So Ed, there's going to be two separate assessment amounts out there. The commercial, the non-single family property owners are going to pay roughly 37 cents per hundred. So whatever their valuation is, they'll have an additional tax of 37 cents per hundred. The homeowners will pay somewhere around $1.10 extra per hundred, and they're paying for additional improvements that are being built out there, roads in front of their houses, all the water lines, and those types of things. So those are the two different assessments.
What about? Let me ask you. What about the hospital, for instance? Are they included in this PID assessment? Or are they excluded from it?
I get you to mash that button there.
Sorry, I thought I had pressed it. The PID statute doesn't differentiate. The PID statute basically says if you have a benefit from the improvements that are being put out there, you have an obligation to be assessed. But I think what John is planning to do here is probably pay off their assessments at closing. So the portion of the improvements that would otherwise be financed by those assessments, John's going to pay cash to finance those. So they will not have an assessment long-term on them. There'll be an assessment put on the property, but it'll be satisfied immediately.
That's an incentive to bring them here, in other words. Would that be applicable for any other business that come in at the discretion? As I look over this agreement and hadn't got to go through it all that I need to or will since last Friday when I received it. But I mean, do you have the ability to do that with any business?
Yeah, the assessment can be paid off. John can negotiate anything he wants with any of the commercial builders that are coming in, and even if he doesn't, those purchasers, the new property owners, have the ability to pay off that assessment at any time they want. There's always a principal amount outstanding, and they'll know that when they, in fact, the PID statute now requires a notice when they put the property under contract and another notice when they close. And they'll know what the assessment amount is, they'll know the annual payment, they'll know the principal balance. They could write a check on day one for the principal balance and have no obligation to pay another cent out there for the entire duration of the bid.
So give me an example on a $250,000 townhome out there. I bought it and I said, I'm just going to pay the PID assessment up front. For the public, what would that be real quick? And I know that dollar amount has changed from, as I look back at previous and notes that we've had over the years here that I've been involved in this, looking at it, went from in the upper 60 cents per thousand to, I believe we're looking at maybe now, what, $1.05, $1.08?
I think it's $1.19. We're still working on, you know, TERS offsets from the county and those types of things, but I think the gross bid assessment's $1.19 per hundred. And, if you sit tight for just a second, I'll tell you what the FAR amount is.
While you're looking, let me ask you, on the TERS, is the county involved in that?
At this point, we're working toward getting the development agreement approved, and then we'll move, that'll be the next step, is to discuss that with them. So we're not to the point of that negotiation yet.
Could you explain, since we're on the subject, what the TERS and the TERS offset, and what that is in?
Right, and I'll also, so to Tim's question about assessments, what is the amount of the assessment? And so it goes back to that example of, so if I have 50,000 in a lot, you know, I can sell it for, and versus 10,000 that being through PID bonds and 40,000 of that being cash out of pocket. And so I can sell that lot for 45,000 and have an assessment, or I can sell it for 55,000 and I could agree to pay the assessment. And so either way, the cost comes out the same. You understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? And so in the end, it's the same cost. It has to be collected, you know, so I'm putting out less money, or a portion of the money I'm putting out in cash, and a portion of the money would be coming out of PID bonds. And so basically somebody, a homeowner would be more likely to want to finance that PID bond portion and just pay their bonds out as part of what they did and buy the house at a lesser rate. Where a commercial user would be more likely to come in and say, hey, I just want to write a check for all of it. So let's negotiate all that at one time and be done. But they're paying a higher price because that PID bond is being included in the cost up front versus being able to pay that bond out later. But it works out to the same in the end. That's how it works out.
So to answer your question specifically, you asked me on a single family residence, a townhome lot out there, at $1.19. The way the math is really simple, right? It's the average price of the house, 250,000 times $1.19 per hundred. It's a $2,975 annual payment is what the additional payment is. So roughly $250 a month for the homeowner. And then the amount that's levied on the property depends on the interest rate when you levy the assessment, right? So if we're at a 7% interest, it's probably somewhere around $30,000. If you had a 5% interest, it'd be $35,000. So the gross levy is going to be somewhere between 30, 35,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
That a prospective homeowner could just throw out when he's buying that $250,000 home, if he chooses to pay that.
He could. It happens very rarely, less than 1% of the time. And the primary reason is that debt sits there for 30 years, and if you're not, it's a decent amount of money. And if you're not going to live in the house for 30 years, you're paying that assessment off for the next homeowner too, right? They don't pick up that assessment. So if you pay that $30,000 assessment off, yes, you theoretically you'd get maybe you sell the house for more money.
Depending on what portion you pay during that period of time on your PID bond. If Roy, been my experience in another place that I worked where there was a PID, and you mentioned that it's a responsibility to let any home buyer know. The realtor's supposed to let them know. They're supposed to know how long it is that there's a PID assessment. And the thing we found is more than not that never happened. And when they sit down for closing and ready to close and were approved and excited about their home, that's when they said, "What's this?" And they said, "That's a PID assessment." And what's that? And we got so many calls at the city. Why did you let this happen? Kind of thing, you know. In fact, so I'm just saying, what can we do to make sure that they're notified? Because we saw it happen over and over in another city.
Yeah, Ed, I'm familiar with the project you're talking about. And the state law has changed since then. I think the session ago or the previous session, they require now 2 notices. They require the notice at contract for signing it, and then again they required at closing. The closing notice is a notarized document that gets recorded, so you can't. I mean, theoretically, you could still bury it in the 70 pages of documents you sign at closing, but the second notice is really the requirement where it gets recorded on title. So that PID assessment's pretty hard to hide at that point. I don't want to talk for John, but what we wound up doing out there at the project you're talking about is we put a sign basically in the front of the property that said you're buying that was a municipal management district or something, I think. But it was theoretically the same thing, an assessment financing tool. And they put a sign in the front yard that said, in the front of the property that said, you know, the homes in this neighborhood are subject to an additional municipal management district tax. And I think that's an easy way to at least, you know, be proactive in notifying the folks that are moving in there that might be a possibility for them.
Roy, couldn't the realtors also be proactive in that? I mean, in this area, if we have an HOA, the realtors let the new, potential homeowner know, hey, this subdivision has an HOA and here's what their dues are. So couldn't we also do the same thing for this, new development, that the realtors would step up and disclose that information to the potential buyer?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think if you're a realtor and you don't disclose this, you're risking losing your deal at closing, which is the last thing you want to do. That's when you're ready to get your check, right? So I think hopefully the realtors are doing their job in notifying homeowners that they're in the neighborhood that has the assessment.
But back to the homeowners association talking about, I've served on a homeowners association board here a number of years ago, and I'll just say at that time, ballpark, the homeowners association fees was $200, $200 to $300 a year, and I know the years that I served on it, there was a number of people that was behind and didn't pay that. Of course, it does get collected when the house sells. There's a lien put on. I understand that, but the same thing's going to happen with this. I would think you don't see that very often.
Yeah, the big difference here is that you have the ability to foreclose under a homeowners association, but you rarely use that authority. In this particular case, if they're not paying their PID assessments, they're getting that bill on their property taxes just like they're getting every other bill. They're likely not paying any of their property taxes, and they'll be subject to foreclosure under a scenario like that. But remember, it's not an acceleration of the debt. You don't owe the $30,000 if you didn't pay your annual payment. You owe the $3,000, and if you pay that, you're back in good standing. So it's less painful than it might otherwise be.
I've got a few questions, and I'll be. I jotted a few things down as you were talking there, John. But okay, it's my understanding. Would it be fair to say that the PIDs work on a reimbursement basis?
Yeah, so we have the option with our the first major road that we build in there to be able to fund that up front, and so there's all kinds of checks and balances, and their engineer and our engineer. Roy can probably speak more to that process than I can of how that would be funded, but our goal right now is just to do reimbursements, which we don't anticipate doing anything other than reimbursements, which would be when we are completely done building out that street, then we would apply for reimbursement through a PID bond. We would get bonds at that time.
And I guess that's where I'm going next. In other words, the developer only gets his PID money once the public improvements are constructed. Once they're constructed. So I guess my question would be, are y'all financially able to work on reimbursement only basis? Where I noticed in what's a little bit of this, I deciphered through a number of pages here on this agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it says that the city will fund and or reimburse the developer.
So the funding, so how it works is even if you're getting funding up front, you're only getting funding as work is being completed. So reimbursement versus funding as you go through the deal, the difference is you're just getting it at quicker increments. So you're not waiting until you're 100% done. When a certain amount of work is done, you're getting reimbursed throughout the construction process. And so, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
But I think when we do, if we do an upfront bond issuance, what winds up happening is the engineers for the developer and the engineers for the city, your bid administrator, all your professionals on your side will determine what the cost of those improvements are. So if you have a $5 million worth of public improvements that have to be constructed, and the PID assessment nets you $3 million, John will have to write a check for $2 million so that $5 million is sitting with the trustee that you guys hired and are in control of that money, and it gets dispersed as the improvements are completed. So in the event that, you know, John or any other developer, we do this 100 times around the state of Texas, in the event that a developer defaulted, the money's there to still complete the public improvements. So in the event of an upfront financing, all the dollars are there to complete the public improvements, and the only way they get released is he submits a pay app, your engineer goes and makes sure that the work has actually been done, the pipes in the ground or whatever the improvements are, and then once everybody signs off on it, your engineers are good, they say it's been constructed to our standards and it's in the ground and meets the requirements for being reimbursed for that segment of that improvement, then they fund that. So there's plenty of checks and balances in place to secure that.
Do you normally see in a town our size, a project such as this magnitude, you said 185 to $290 million, will that not require, I'm not calling it burden on the city, but I'm saying extra staff to help oversee that and administer the, just for instance, just the PID assessment by itself?
You will hire a PID administrator, and the homeowners, as part of their annual assessment payment, pay an administrative fee. So their annual payment is generally fixed. It's not the exact same dollar amount year over year, but the principal and interest is sort of fixed. They try to balance that over the 30-year period. What changes is the administrative costs. So the early years are probably slightly higher administrative costs, but the homeowners pay for that cost as well. There's no burden on the city. In fact, the only burden on the city really under a PID scenario is you have an annual report to do. You have a foreclosure obligation in the event that the homeowner doesn't pay, and that's really it.
The devil's always in the details on everything. It has been quite a lengthy process to get us to this night right here. And we've had meetings and we've had presentations and we've had all sorts of things over those times to help the council and the city staff understand the complexities of this opportunity. As a realtor, I've been back and working in real estate here professionally since 1986. And so I'm certainly know, I'm sure there's people in the room here tonight that are more eloquent than I about speaking about buying and selling and concerns with buyers and sellers and financing and ad valorem taxation and assessments and all of those issues. I find them for people that are not experts in real estate to be extremely complicated to understand the intricate workings of all of these things, and there's a lot of moving pieces for a development that you are trying so hard to bring to realization. I agree that I agree with a lot of the things you've said overall about your presentation about the pies and the growing and the trade numbers here. It's always been it's obvious our trade area expands and opportunities expand way beyond Mount Pleasant and Titus County. That I don't think hardly anybody would have any problem with that. As a councilwoman that has had the opportunity to listen and to consider this for the past several years, as this thing has been worked on and worked on and worked on, there's some other concerns that that I have that caught my attention at various points of this process. I, for one, would love to see something big and wow and pop, and we all would think and would love to see things. We have this interstate, and then we have 271 out there on that intersection, and there's a desire and probably a need to see that portion of our town used. We have a wonderful location out there that is underutilized, and part of that is because it doesn't at this point even have sewer service out there, and it's going to be quite an effort and expense for the city or someone to pay to get the sewer extended and the water and then things. I think, I'm not an engineer, but I think it's going to require boring under the interstate and a lot of very complicated maneuvers to get. That's one reason that there hasn't already probably been more interest in years past about developing some of that. I know there's a lot of other things, and we could be here all night, but to hit the high notes, and when I was talking about the details, it does take quite an effort to pull together this sort of a development project. A lot of planning goes into it. But then we get down to some of those more intricate details about the actual development itself and the requirements behind the scenes in the details again. We can all see the pictures and see the vision, and I think most of us are excited for those kinds of visions. I know I am. I think it would be great to have a one-off thing and utilize the location that we have, the trade area that we have, the opportunity for growth. And I do know that businesses that are here and looking to grow and come here, that there are some conversations about where the people are going to live. And I understand one feeds the other. However, I've done some research on my own to be a better informed, to the best of my ability, councilwoman to represent the entire city. My duty is, as I see it, is to consider things and the impact that it will have on everyone. The city, of course, we look at City Hall, and the city staff is here to serve the citizens of our area, of our city particularly. And their ad valorem tax that we collect here is a part of the funding. We collect sales tax, and then we have the other stream of the bigger streams of revenue. There's 3 of them, and one of them is through the taxation, which pretty much pays salaries and some of those administrative things. When we make decisions here, we have to be careful to not just get caught up in the visionary part of it, but make sure that to the best of our ability that we have looked at the details that are included with these projects. One thing tonight, the people that are here, and I'm glad you're here, I'm so grateful for this room full of people, because this is a huge decision that you've made and that we're needing to make to enter into this development agreement with this project. And there's I have concerns. Tonight we paid 2 or 3 pay requests, and one of them was on this large upgrade on our sewer system out here, our wastewater system. Every contract that we enter into, just about, I don't know that everyone, but the majority of them have estimated timelines of completion. There's an end game to it. From what I can understand about this magnitude of developments, it's hard to estimate when it will be completed at build out. And I understand that to a point, but even with a reasonable range of expectation, I don't see that. And I believe that a project like this, once it's gone into, will take years. I believe I was blessed Friday to turn 62 years of age, and I don't think that this project in Mount Pleasant will be completely built out in my natural lifetime, unless I find the Fountain of Youth and take a little sip and add a few years. I'm getting older. The point I'm trying to make is the staff that's here now, the council that's here now, this project will be passed on to the next administration, to the next council, to govern and to administer. I have a concern about passing on this long of a project for them to have to. I'm just telling you my concerns out loud, because I'm glad everybody's listening that has interest in this. I think it's a long-term commitment. I think it's going to be. I think that it's going to be burdensome to keep up with it. And what I mean by that, not just boots on the ground to drive out as needed to do this and check the boxes. Yeah, the permits are done and done. The codes are being enforced and all that. I think it's deeper than that. My understanding is I have been to other cities myself to look and to see some of these types of developments that other cities have already participated in, and then was able to talk to city managers, mayors, and things like this. And they, in a nutshell, because again, this could get very detailed, I left with the understanding that this proposal, guys, has changed a lot since I heard it the very first time 4 years ago. The details have changed. The needs have changed. I never did understand why it took so long to get us a development agreement proposal. I know we had to get some help to look at the standards and the qualities and the finishes and all that. It's very detailed. But it just seems like there was some this and that, and the getting the bond. Are we still looking at a Mount Pleasant municipal bond for your PID or not? Where's that money coming from exactly? I know that, again, I may have missed it, but I'm still not clear on that. We were in or out, and then and they said the long-term execution on behalf of the city can be daunting, exasperating. It's expensive. There's changing going on constantly, that it's going to take a lot of legal help on the city side to understand those changes possibly, and to renegotiate the development agreement as it's lived out. Those are concerns of mine for the future of the city of Mount Pleasant. And I don't have the direct experience. I've only gotten this information or these ideas through external research on my own to ask. You've already done it. I think experience is the best teacher. I don't have to reinvent the wheel to go ask, where the wheel came from. It's already there. I just need to understand that wheel, or someone that has worked with it. That's a really, I'm struggling with that for me, that issue. During this process, too, it was brought up that there's a gentleman, I think his name is Mr. Beatty, who, if I understand, at first he started out as your developer, and then he became a partner during this, if I'm not mistaken. I'll give you a chance to, that's something I'm still not clear on. I thought he was your development manager type thing, and then he's maybe a partner in some of this now. And he's been involved in other projects in the past, and other experiences in other towns. And one town, it appeared that last year that he or his associates or whoever's involved in that was delinquent and late in paying some of their maybe taxes and their assessments. And we kept asking about what's caused that delay. Everybody knows that January 31st is the last day to pay your current due assessments and taxes on time. After that, it becomes delinquent, and then as time rolls on, that gets more and more expensive So I was just wondering why all that time he knew that was coming, or they knew that was coming. We all that pay taxes pretty much know that they're due January 31st or before, or they're delinquent. And so that automatically starts adding other expense, because then there's fees and there's late penalties and all this. And it's still, I never got really comfortable myself with the explanation that we were given as to that delinquency and why the choice or the need to delay payment on those assessments. Because if eventually they didn't get paid, then it does throw the city involved in starting a foreclosure process because of non-paid assessments. That's pretty well been established. I've still got a problem with that. I do wonder if, when it's laid out in contracting and presentation and closings and things and disclosures, we all want something nice until we get the price tag for it. Wow, this is a nice event, but do I want to add another $250 a month to my obligation above my other mortgages and my other ad valorem taxes for this assessment? I don't even know I don't even know the current monthly cost to be a member of the Mount Pleasant Country Club, for example. But I do know that when you join that club, you get access to the golf course, you get access to the restaurant, you can use the building for gatherings and parties and birthdays and celebrations sometimes. I believe there's still a swimming pool there, there's tennis courts. When I just buy chemicals for my swimming pool at my house, it almost makes me want to fill it in and go join the country club. I can get a lot more for my money, and I don't have the hole in my backyard that's constant. But John, there's a lot of people that struggle to pay their country club due. We'd all like to have all those things to use and have access to them for enjoyment. But people struggle to join and to pay their dues. I'm really concerned that the additional cost of this newest development is not, I don't think people here necessarily, unless you just bring in a lot of new residents, I think people here locally are going, I can buy, I'll take the little older house with your example and do the paint, or I'll do something different. I would like a couple of acres of land. I think sprawl is the word. We have more room here to spread out. I left the Metroplex after I graduated from UTA with a degree in marketing and some background in real estate, a business, my associate's degree, and I left a couple of good job opportunities at the time because I wanted to come back to East Texas. I love Mount Pleasant. I love I love the lifestyle here. I like more space. I don't think people, I know there's bigger shopping and bigger restaurants in neighboring towns, and I get that, and I'd like to see us remedy that loss, but traffic and stuff's not an issue in Mount Pleasant. Oh, it is a little to us, but go to one of these bigger cities. I like to not made it out of Dallas last weekend on Friday, and my husband said, get me out of this town as quick as you can. It was raining, it was slick. I wanted to walk, if I lived in a development in Dallas, I'd want a restaurant or two, a grocery store, a clinic. It'd be nice to not have to travel to somewhere else. But here, it's just not that big a deal yet to get in your car if you live there and run downtown to the existing grocery stores and walk. I don't think traffic is that big an issue for people. I don't believe that's limiting them. It's nice to have it. So I just don't know I'm really concerned about that. And the TERS thing, I don't know. I hate to vote to approve a development agreement when we don't at least have a verbal from the commissioners that they will work, if they get the development in place, that they'll help you with the TERS and to offset there's just several things. And then I've had a lot of personal questions out in the community. What do I know and understand about EB5 money? Which my understanding is that a lot of your financing will come through an EB5 program that the federal government has in place to help develop lands and properties in the United States. And it's been in place. The EB5 program has been around for many, many years. Many years. I don't even know, but it's been a long, long time. And not, just because people don't know about that program doesn't mean it doesn't exist or it's not applicable. I know that doesn't directly involve the city. That's something that is for you and your team to work out about your financing for the project. What we're involved in, my understanding is a development agreement, and to see that out to fruition, to see it through, and the burden, not just the opportunity. We all want to talk about the possibilities, but what about the burden to see this project through, and on the taxpayer and on the city staff? This is complicated. I am grateful that there's a number of people here tonight to listen so that we can get even more feedback from the community, because ultimately I believe this council is here to carry out the majority of the will of the people in our area, in our town, because this is not my town, it's not your town, it's our town. And it's a community that we need to consider the impact on the entire community. And I get it. And if you do it, I believe you'll do a good job. I believe your vision is wonderful. I agree with most of the pie you showed, but I'm still struggling with the details.
You want me to respond to that? So, 2 minutes or less. All right. So, I guess first, Roy, can you go to Sherry mentioned that the responsibility of the city moving forward. What is their responsibility, and how does that change over time?
Well, I think there's sort of the mechanics of the PID, which I've addressed earlier, and then there's, just the mechanics of a development coming to town and all the responsibilities and your permits and your inspectors and all of the other stuff. And I think that, in my mind, is at least separate from the PID, because if the development took place without a public improvement district or some sort of special financing, all those things would happen anyway. So I can talk about the PID. The PID adds virtually no additional responsibility to the city. Again, an annual disclosure and foreclosure if they don't pay their assessments. If they don't pay their assessments, they're likely not paying their city taxes, their school district taxes, their county taxes. And so somebody's probably foreclosing on them anyway. So I don't think that adds any additional burden on the city. Again, there is certainly all of the development related stuff that I think would be there, whether or not there's a development agreement, a public improvement district, and all the rest. And then the other thing I did want to talk about, because you mentioned it, is who's issuing the debt and who's responsible for it. I think that was, I may be paraphrasing what your question was, but the debt is issued by the city. You're sort of, and your financial advisor will give you all of this information. He represents you and will validate all this stuff. But since I'm here and I don't think he is, I'll answer the question. So the city is the conduit issuer. So you issue the debt, but it doesn't go against your full faith and credit of the city. You don't have any obligation to repay the debt. And in the event that there is a foreclosure and nobody buys the property in a foreclosure sale, and remember they would buy this property at 10 cents on the dollar or something like that. Even if it was under development, even if you issued the bonds up front, like the example we used earlier, all the money's there to complete those improvements. So even if I had to buy it at a foreclosure, I now have access to the money to deliver a completed lot that has some significant value to it. But in the event that it forecloses on it, there's not enough money to pay the bondholders assume the risk. You have no obligation to write them a check for a dime. And so you have, there really is no financial risk to you. There is, because we're talking about the details, I don't want to misrepresent any facts. There is a potential where if we issue PID bonds early in a year and the city comes along and wants to issue bonds later on, you may get a bank qualified, you may miss out on your bank qualified financing. It may cost you an extra 5 basis points or 10 basis points. The development agreement addresses that and says if there is a fee, the developer pays the difference. So if there's a cost to you for borrowing money in any fiscal year, the developer has to pay, and your financial advisor calculates it and says, here's the invoice, write me a check, and the developer's obligated to do so. So really, almost no risk to the city other than reporting and foreclosure obligations.
And how many times have you, just in general, in history, in Texas, how many times have you seen the city had to foreclose?
So
Is it common?
Yeah, our firm's been involved in about 40% of the public improvement districts in Texas, and we've never had a project that's gone to foreclosure. We've had some delinquencies before. You mentioned some of them, but we've never had a foreclosure situation.
And how many, 40%, how many lots is that? How much development is that?
I mean, we've done, $3 billion worth of public improvement bonds that we've issued through the state of Texas, and I don't know, it's 30, 40, 50,000 lots, single-family lots, and commercial development, and multifamily stuff, and the whole 9 yards. We've been involved in a lot of projects.
I got a couple of questions, guys. John, you've done some development a lot of different places, and obviously Roy's involved in a lot. In the corridor of 380 that stretches through from Greenville to McKinney, and then the corridor from Caddo Mills and up back through Lavon and all of that area, everything in North Dallas up to the river. How much of that is a PID or a MUD or some type of tool, financial tool utilized? What percentage would you say is a utility district or a PID or a MUD or something like that, or TERS or something like that? How many of those percentage wise use those?
We've done, I mean, you named Lavon. We've done the Elevon project in Lavon, the Lakeside Crossing project in Lavon. We've done stuff in Princeton, and all of those areas. I would say that in Texas today, there is almost no substantial development that happens without some sort of financing tool, a PID, MUD, freshwater supply district, something like that. In that corridor you mentioned, I'm hesitant to say 90% just because it seems like a ridiculously high number, but it very well could be that high. Certainly 75, 80, 90% of those developments are all done using some sort of a special financing tool. Yeah, I mean, this is how, when you look at the cost of land and the cost of development, all of these kind of things, there's really no path to develop if you don't have a financing tool to do it. And again, from our perspective, what you're doing is, this is, the people who are consuming the product are the ones paying for it, right? You're building roads and water and sewer to serve a community, and the people that live in that community are the ones paying for it. The citizens here in Mount Pleasant aren't paying for those improvements. The people that live there or own property there or do business there are the ones that are paying for it.
And as I did some studying over the last 4 years, looking at this project and looking at different ones, that's the beauty of the whole thing, is the city's not responsible for any of it. I mean, honestly, if you don't want to pay the PID tax, don't live where the project is. It's simple. If you don't want to pay the assessment, don't move there. I've been a part of talking to several companies over the last couple of years, and to a T, every one of them want to know, where are my employees coming from? Where are they going to live at? And asking questions about how far away is Paris. Well, they're wanting to know that because the Skinner plant closed, and they know they can draw a line employee from Skinner, or what used to be Oathard or Oatworth or whatever, the bread company, and then it went to Skinner, and now it's closed again, But the fact is we don't have enough housing. If you travel through Sulphur Springs at all, and travel along where they built their new schools at, and daily you see updates on new duplexes, new homes, new apartments, and I said the other night when we were talking about infrastructure, anybody can look at what we've done over the last 4 years, and we've focused a lot on infrastructure. We paid a bill tonight on a piece of infrastructure that the TCEQ had been telling us for years that we needed to complete. And nobody just bite the bullet and do it. But if you don't complete that, we're out of sewer on the north side of the interstate. So none of this happens without the infrastructure that we committed to. And so if we passed on doing that, you would basically stifle the growth. And you can go from Dallas to Greenville to Sulphur Springs and come through. And I said the other night, and I'm being as honest as I can be, we can close our eyes and go, I don't want to do some things because I don't like who you're financing it with. That's none of our business, who you're financing it with. I might say, I don't like X bank, and you financed it with X bank, so I'm not going to do it. Well, that's not right. It's not the way things happen. That's not the way financial, that's not the way things go. You know, if it's a legal means, and it obviously is, you can't say, I just don't like that, I'm not going to do that for you, because I don't like where you're financing it. I mean, it's not proper. And I'm just, you know, the PID, the PID tax itself has an administrator, and the people that live in the PID pay for the administrator to take care of it. So the onus or the angst on the city to have something to do really is very little, because the administrator is paid for through the PID itself. You know, I just think that I've heard for years. I grew up here, and a lot of you know me, and so I've grown up here, and for years, you know, we don't have anything to do. We don't have anything. We don't have any place to eat. We don't have any place to shop. Let's go to Longview. I mean, I've done it. We've done it. We've all grown up here. Anybody that's grown up here has done it. And you got somebody that's willing to put his life on the line, his livelihood on the line, to say, I'm willing to step up and do something and bring jobs to the community and bring growth to the community. And unless you put your money and your livelihood on the line and created something, you don't understand what angst goes into that. You know, and how special it is to be able to create something that somebody goes, hey, you know what, I didn't have to go somewhere else. I came out here. I just, and the hospital making the, I just almost wish they'd have made a bigger splash about it, because, and, you know, that they want to come out, that they're coming and building, they're building, and we're starting in X day, and by X amount of days, we'll have 50 employees there. I mean, that's a huge thing. And I'm not saying, you know, that everything is 100%, because no development is 100%. It never is. There's a chance, there's a risk in everything you do. But you can choose to be a part of something special and a move that'll make Mount Pleasant change for the rest of their life. And we've had some changes up on the north end in the last 2 years that is going to change that north end from where I sit all the way through the interstate. And you're going to see changes on the Harts Bluff Road, because there's growth going on there. And, you know, in my worth of it, my say of it is I'm excited for you, and I appreciate what you've done. And I want to be a part of the next steps that takes Mount Pleasant to the next place. I don't want to stay. If you stay where you're at, they're going to go past you, and they will be sitting in Texarkana, and we will be dead. We have had zero population growth, and it's because we don't have any housing. And if you'll take a step away and go to some of the other communities around us, you'll see that they are building the housing which brings the jobs. Because once the housing is there, then the jobs and the creation of those, they come with it, because the people want to know, where are my employees coming from? So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Galen.
John, Ms. Sproul mentioned something about timeline. Do y'all have a projected timeline, at least on building out all the retail pad sites?
Yes, we have a projected timeline of 7 years for the whole project. And so what we'll start is this summer we'll start building that first major road that goes through the development that comes from the service road around to 271. We, as part of our agreement with the hospital, that road will get built. And so that road will be built, and then there's one other really L-shaped leg there that'll be built. It's Mattingly Way, and then it's where it connects over to that from Anderson. We anticipate building all that at the same time, but certainly Anderson Parkway will be completed. Our agreement includes us completing that within 12 months so next summer that'll be done. And so at the same time we start that, we plan to retain, our goal right now is to retain the apartments. And so we'll start our first phase of around 250 apartments just after starting the road. And so when the road's finished, that's about the time that we anticipate the utilities, the sewer coming around town. And so that project being completed where we could tie into that, and we could offer housing as early as the fall of next year. And so we anticipate having about 3 phases of apartments. So what we'll do is we'll build that first phase, and based on the lease up, we'll respond to demand. We'll build the second phase and then the third phase. As far as retail pad sites, with the hospital buying 13 acres, basically we have 3 pad sites beside the hospital, and then we have 6 pad sites on Highway 271. So there's only a total of 9 pad sites left. And so as far as build out on those, I know movement creates excitement, and it's the snowball effect of, if the hospital's coming, somebody else is going to fill those pad sites beside them, which, that just adds more movement, which gets the pad sites on 271 filled. And then as far as housing, what we have in there is we have, if we built 2 houses a month, it would be completed in 7 years. And I believe we'll do a lot more than that, but I'm just saying 7 years is realistic. And so that's really what we're thinking of, full build out in 7 years.
Who will manage the apartments as far as, rental applications, et cetera? Will that be your company, or you hire and source out a different company to manage that for you?
We'll more than likely source a management company that specializes in management, so we know that it's being well taken care of. 250 apartments is kind of the minimum to be able to hire that expertise, and so that's kind of why we've got our first phase set at 250. Let's see, I was fixing to mention something else about build out. We'll have townhomes in there, which there will only be a total of 80 townhomes in there, and we anticipate selling those lots and local builders building those out. But at 7 years, you're still only at a dozen a year, so I feel certain. That's what I was going to say. The other thing is, like Galen said, people that want to be involved in this community, they'll certainly be there. I don't anticipate every single person that moves here to move to this community. And, to the comment that Sherry made a while ago in response to that, everybody, it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, is everybody's looking for something different. And so what this community offers as far as living in, I think everybody in town will enjoy eating there, they'll enjoy hanging out there, all those things. But as far as living there and the proximity to all those things and being able to walk to that, I think people that struggle to get around, there's those people physically that will want to go somewhere close. I know my father-in-law, if he has to walk very far, he can't go. And so you'll have those people, but you'll also have that medical facility, but also millennials. Everybody doesn't want to maintain space. And so, I know the younger generation, a lot of those people, they they want to spend their money on experience. And so, you know, this is a daily experience, but also instead of mowing the grass, they want to go hang out with their friends on the weekend or go on some adventure. And so everybody doesn't want space. And so, you know, for us, when we were growing up, you know, the big house on the ranch or whatever was the dream, but that's not really the dream anymore. And so I think there'll be plenty of people that this excites and that'll want to be living in that development. And I think that'll be good.
You know, I know it's getting late. I'm wondering, did you answer the question about the TERS and the TERS offset and what's going to happen there?
Sorry, Ed, I did not. So the numbers that I quoted you on the $250 a month, that was without any TERS offset. So right now, the way we're mathing the project, we're not assuming that there's going to be a TERS offset. What would happen is, what we're asking for is we're asking for the county to contribute half of the collection on the additional ad valorem that's created in that project. And what that would do is it just offset the assessment for the homeowner. So you take, I think the county's at 30 or 40 cents. I don't remember. I didn't look at it recently, but you take half of that tax and you offset the assessment. So it's actually around 17 cents. So instead of paying $1.19 per hundred, you pay $1 or $1.01 per hundred, something like that is your net assessment. So they would just get a credit on their tax.
One other thing, could you speak toward the hospital and what it may do, the impact to the hospital we have? Now, that's not going to be a full hospital. It's an ER with a helipad and I guess ambulance service or something. And I know maybe you don't know all the answers, but I know our hospital has an ambulance service. I assume this one will, or will they share or whatever. And but what is the impact? There's people I've talked to who think there may be a negative impact to this one, and this one's is a district, taxing district. And so maybe you speak to that. And
so the beginning of the answer to the question is they haven't given us a ton of details yet. But basically what they've said is they said we're going to start with an emergency facility, and that'll be our phase one, and then we'll just continue building. We have 13 acres, so basically, you know, we can meet demand. And so where we see there's a need in the community, we can meet that need. But as far as we don't have a site plan yet, our engineers are working with their engineers right now to create a site plan.
I know that, and they're good guys, and Christus is a good hospital. They seem to be wanting to move real fast so they can start right away. Our concern is we don't have those details, and I'd kind of like to understand what it's going to do to our local guys, local hospital.
Well, I think right, and to me, what I would, short version is they haven't said that to me. So, but personally, all I can respond to is I believe that competition elevates, and so if there's two people in the market, it forces the guy that's there to do a good job too. And so I think having to be responsible to meet the same quality of care or to be at that same level is good for both hospitals. So, you get a guy that runs fast and you're fixing to run a race, it's probably going to make you run faster. It's not going to make you run slower. And so I think it's good for the community to have those choices.
Okay, I think I guess what I'm trying to get to also is I think we'd like to maybe slow their pace down a little bit so we can, because they've got to come to us and get plans done and replats and maybe some P&Z stuff. So I'm not sure it's going to be something happening in 30 or 60 days. So that's what I'm just cautioning against. We don't want to go too fast.
And I'm in complete agreement with that. I agree with that statement.
All right, thank you again. There's been a lot of information put out, and I certainly appreciate the public being here to hear all of that. If we don't have any further questions or discussion? You got something else?
I want to just say that right now our plans are to bring it to you next council meeting in 2 weeks to talk about it and then to consider approval of the discussion or the development agreement and the PID. But anyway, I'll put it back to you.
Okay. What was the question, sir?
Well, the Democratic Republic is pretty messy, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
But I like this.
Hold on. Hold on, sir, before you get started.
Steve Bolster. My address is 1497 County Road, 3240, Mount Pleasant, 903-305-5408. I want to first thank Mr. Anderson for the energy that he's brought to this. We definitely need more entrepreneurship to grow this community. I'd like to start off by inviting anyone on the City Council to have a follow-up discussion with the information that I've amassed. I agree that we need affordable housing for Mount Pleasant and Titus County. This area has a history of being a rural farming and industrial community. I understand that change and growth occur, and it needs to occur. I do not want to take away anything from the commitment of its citizens, this council, and the businesses that have developed here. They are the foundation of our community, and with that said, I don't believe that this is the right solution. I'm standing before you very troubled by this project you are proposing for a number of reasons. I'm going to cover issues of national security, structure of the proposed project, the market environment, economic development, and the debt that has been placed upon this community already. I've been in this community for 10 years. I am a transplant, but I married a Texas girl. The latter part of my career was spent in Washington, D.C., dealing with national security issues post 9/11. I personally visited the town of Westlake and met with the city manager to discuss their EB-5 program. I am also familiar with the Flower Mound EB-5 project that also has dragged on and has not been successful as of yet. So first I'm going to discuss or cover national security. Did you know that there are 18 federal intelligence agencies in this country? And the biggest challenge with people coming to the U.S. is that we cannot properly vet people coming from countries that are our adversaries. The EB-5 program began in 1990 with the congressional approval. Its intent was to encourage investment from our allies abroad. Fast forward, it has become a perversion of its original intent. Now 80% of EB-5 participants are from China, and India is a close second. Two of the most difficult countries for the U.S. to vet people from. In China, you cannot amass large sums of money and emigrate to another country without the blessing of the Chinese Communist Party, which is also known as the CCP. In India, it's a little different. There are payments made. In the U.S., we call them bribes. These people are embedding into our community all over our country. And hopefully you're familiar with the massive land grabs that the Chinese have been successful in already acquiring. They are coming at us from multiple angles. Once they establish a foothold, they bring over their folks on HB1 visas. China actually has a 5, 10, 30, and 100-year plan to take over the U.S. You are naive to think that these people are not backed by a country that does not like the U.S. You are naive to think that they have been vetted accurately. Look at the situation in Dearborn, Michigan, or Minneapolis, Minnesota. They don't aspire to our American way of life or our values. And this is not conspiracy theory. This is real, and it is already in our community. So the DK Skyline project that y'all approved is already underway. I will give you, the city council, the benefit of the doubt that you are naive about who you were letting into this country in exchange for money. You're on notice. If you pull up the DKSkyrise.com first page, I'll read it. It says our number one priority is to help our investors and their families to secure green cards quickly and hassle-free. I gotta do this. That doesn't seem to be coinciding with our goals here as a community. The foreign national investors that y'all let in won't necessarily live here. They'll be long gone and establishing a foothold somewhere in the U.S. And they'll be following their former country's directives. So let's switch to structure. I visited the town of Westlake and met with the city manager to discuss their EB5 project. Both EB5 programs in Westlake and Flower Mound are 2 towns that are suburbs to Dallas and Fort Worth. Westlake is less than 10 minutes from DFW, and the same for the private Ross Perot Airport Alliance. Many in the community keep their planes and jets there. These projects have been dragging on for years. Westlake has been going on for 9 years, and Flower Mound isn't too far behind. And these are very affluent towns. Westlake, the median household income is $250,000. In Flower Mound, it's $154,000. And for perspective, Mount Pleasant is $54,000. I'm going to focus on Westlake because it's a town that should have easily been successful. Westlake's EB5 project calls for a little over 400 mixed-use units. Some of the houses are massive, some are moderate. There are garden-style condo apartments, and I believe that there is a remaining 53 homes to go on 14 acres, still after 9 years. But it will be a beautiful layout if it ever gets finished. The part that has built out is beautiful. It's very high-end. The commercial part is an eyesore, and they look at it every day. The commercial side is less than 20% occupied. There's no end solution to how it will be completed or when. However, separate from the EB5 program, they have some amazing businesses that are revenue powerhouses that provide huge revenues for the city. There are 3 large campuses, and when I say large, there are thousands of high-dollar employees. They have a Fidelity campus, a Charles Schwab campus, and a Deloitte campus. Charles Schwab has a planned capacity of 8,000 employees daily. There is also a Wells Fargo headquarters and Travelocity. So I had to ask, why isn't this already successful? Well, there are a couple of reasons. Number one, the PID bonds. We've already established the definition of PID. And to be clear, these are bonds provided by the federal government, not Mount Pleasant. So there is no burden when it comes to that. Mount Pleasant sponsors the designation of a property improvement district. But these are very unique federal bonds in that they are associated with a particular parcel of property. And here's the problem with these bonds. And this is an example that the town of Westlake and Flower Mound are dealing with. Let's say you start with a development plan and it includes a 2-acre parcel for an 8-floor apartment complex. This is a very dense requirement for infrastructure such as water, sewer, electric, parking lots, etc. With the PID bond, you might assign a larger bond to cover these expenses for this parcel. Say $3 million. And then in 5 years down the line, you decide that you don't want to necessarily build that 8-floor apartment complex, but rather put in a nice steakhouse. Well, the land costs $3 million, but the PID is an additional $3 million for the total of $6 million before you even break ground. This is what has happened in Westlake and also in Flower Mound. The PID is attached to the parcel land and cannot be changed in any way. It is like dumping economic toxic waste on a parcel of land. It needs to be cleaned up or paid for before anything can be built. Also, as a city, you can put a lien on the property, but you need to pay back the PID. You can't acquire that land. So the restaurant passed on that development. Flower Mound has been in disagreement with the builder on an EB5 parcel to the point that they are working on raising money to buy back part of the property, and they'll have to pay the PID bond. The second issue is the builder has little incentive to finish the project. His advice was there needs to be a timeline specific. The ROI is mostly upfront to the builder from the foreign investments and the PID bonds. The third issue is that the developer doesn't discount the land due to the PID bond. So it is a double hit to the cost of the property. And so this brings up market analysis. Westlake has a huge market of high-paying 6-figure workers, large high-dollar blue-chip corporations, affluent suburbs minutes away, and extremely high traffic. Even with all this, the commercial development is probably less than 20% after 9 years. The town manager admitted that the town revenue increase really hasn't been realized, and it probably would have been better just to develop it without the EB5 and PID money. The management of the EB5 development has taken its toll on its city employees. There would also have been more incentive to finish the project. So after 9 years, there has been no marked revenue improvement for the city. And 9 years is a long time to wait for a return on an investment for the city of Mount Pleasant. The Westlake city manager stressed that it's important to know who specifically are you marketing to? Why is it compelling to come to Mount Pleasant? I honestly don't know who you are trying to attract with the necessary buying power. This isn't a rock wall suburb, and we are so far away from the spectrum of those markets. So this brings us to the economics and our capabilities. This EB5 project can't be some field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. We have a 200-acre Field of Dreams business park that has been dormant for years. It's over 20 years. The city built a building on it over 10 years ago, and it stayed dormant until the local company expanded into it. Still, the Mount Pleasant Economic Development Group has not been successful at attracting high-dollar corporate offices anywhere in the area, nor have they been successful at attracting any net new businesses of this type. You need a lot of economic reserve to support this program. Westlake is a 400-unit project, and y'all are proposing a 900-unit project here. There's no high-dollar corporations, nor any supporting communities with any economic power. The retail shops that are proposed, in my opinion, are not growth necessarily, just more hourly wages. And another point, I remember when the soccer complex, which went way over budget, was being sold to the citizens as a draw for huge tournaments that would fill the hotels and restaurants. This hasn't happened. So who can afford these places? The average worker here makes $18 to $24 an hour. What will be the rent? The going rent here is around $600 to $1,200. These hard workers of our community, I don't think can afford much more than $135K or $150K per property if they were to buy. And so this brings us to the last item of concern, debt. The reason I bring this up is that Westlake and probably Flower Mound will probably solve their problems with money. They have citizens that make over 3 and 6 times the average of Mount Pleasant household. And they have very powerful companies that generate well over 3 times the revenue of Mount Pleasant receives. And by the way, in Westlake, there's less than 2,000 residents compared to our 16,000 residents. So there's 1/8 of the residents, and the city generates 3 times the tax revenue of Mount Pleasant. This is why I bring up the subject of debt. What happens when this project here goes sideways? According to the Texas Bond Review Board, in 2020, the bond debt in Mount Pleasant for each household was $3,300. As of 2023, the debt per household has skyrocketed to more than $14,000 per household. And after Mount Pleasant adds an additional $34.5 million bond debt, just recently approved, the bond debt will be $21,000 per household, or 38%. That's against the average household income of $54K. And this has happened in the last 3 years. Now in Westlake, the debt per household is a little over $68,000 per household. But that's against $250,000, or 27%. The city of Mount Pleasant doesn't have power to fix problems like Westlake or Flower Mound. The cost of bonds will get higher if we approach a junk bond rating. So in summary, this development supports Chinese foreign national investments in exchange for American citizenship. We are selling America out to our foreign adversaries. The City Council is considering authorizing $30 million in PID bonds that will be attached to the land and cannot be removed, changed, or modified until paid for. The builder of Westlake and Flower Mound have dragged on for many years with no completion date in sight. That's not a good reference, and it's not a good example to make this decision upon. No significant tax revenue has been realized for the respective cities going on 9 years. Westlake and Flower Mound are significantly richer communities with much larger businesses, with much higher tax revenue bases, and the suburbs to Dallas and Fort Worth, and they are still not successful. Without real growth, you will risk doing irreparable damage to our downtown merchants that are already struggling every day. We don't have a good track record on growth. This will not add affordable housing, in my opinion, to the area. It will burden the residents of the city of Mount Pleasant and Titus County. As I said in the beginning, I am in favor of housing. I think that's a great location. We desperately need it. Let's just figure out a way to do it without inviting foreign adversaries and PID bonds. There are plenty of investors out there that will keep a project such as this in check. I thank you for your time and welcome further discussion on any of the points I've discussed.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. All righty. Well, at this time, we'll go ahead and, did y'all have anything else? Okay,
Staff would like to have some, guidance on whether you want this brought back in 2 weeks for more discussion. Do you want us to bring the, development agreement and the creation to you for consideration and vote? And so, so we know what to do. That was our plan.
Yeah, we can go ahead and bring it back. All right, with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and close that item on the agenda and move on to item 9, which is our city manager's report.
Yes, I don't have much. I just want to remind everybody that President's Day is February 19th. That's the day before Monday before our next meeting on the 20th. And it's a city holiday. And just remind you, we'll be closed that day. Let me just add too, real quick, while we got an audience here. In the last little less than 2 weeks, we lost a member of our city staff. We call it. It was Michael Rowe Davis was passed away, and he served on our planning and zoning board for a number of years. And I attended the funeral and the visitation. All Michael was a good friend to a lot of the people in this room, and I think we'd be remiss tonight by not remembering him. And again, shouting out to the family that our condolences, and he will greatly be missed by our city going forward. It's one of those positions that we're going to have to replace, to put someone else in that position, but they can never replace what Michael Rowe did for our city over the years. You can always count on him, and whatever his and I've served on the council for a number of years, been blessed to, and but whatever his thoughts were on the different planning and zoning issues, he knew the town, he knew what used to be there, what road was here, he just knew all the players, and again, it's just going to be greatly missed. I just wanted to again offer our condolences to his family and a great loss to the city.
Okay, yeah, certainly thank you for that. Thank you for reminding us of that. He was certainly a great asset and he's definitely going to be missed. At that time, we'll go ahead and close item 9 on the agenda, and we'll be going into executive session. Pursuant to Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Texas Government Code, the City Council will recess into executive session to discuss the following, which is personnel matters which discuss the appointment, employment, evaluation, assignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of public officer or employee. This is concerning board appointments. Thank you. And city manager. All right, time is 9:53 p.m. In accordance with the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, the City Council will reconvene into our regular session to consider action on matters discussed in executive session, which is consider approval of IDC and planning and zoning board appointments. We have, for our IDC, we have Mike Price and Chris Elliott, who's both expressed desire to continue serving it, and on the planning and zoning, it'd be Sheila Donnelly. And I'll open the floor for a motion on that item.
I make a motion that we, approve the names that were presented tonight for each board.
I'll second that.
All right, motion made by Councilman Chappelle, second by Councilman Dale. Madam Secretary, record the vote.
Aye.
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 Vote is unanimous.
Blush.
All right.